What if the person you think you are is not really you? What if your shyness, your anxiety, your emotional distance, your constant need to overthink and keep the peace weren't personality traits, but survival strategies? What if everything you identify with today was quietly shaped by a child's attempt to feel safe in an unsafe world? A child is not born emotionally unavailable. A child is not born afraid of conflict or desperate to please. A child is born whole, open, trusting, and full of potential. But then comes the environment, and the nervous system adapts. If emotional honesty led to punishment, you learned to stay silent. If love had strings attached, you became a performer. If chaos surrounded you, you clung to control. If caregivers were unpredictable, you learned to never get too close, or to cling until it hurt. You didn't choose these traits. They chose you for one purpose: survival. What we call a personality is often just a mask, forged in the fire of emotional adaptation. A beautiful, intelligent mask, but a mask nonetheless. This is not who you are. This is who you had to become to stay safe, seen, or invisible, in a world that didn't always offer safety, presence, or love. But here's the truth that will change everything. You are not your patterns. You are not your defense mechanisms. You are not your childhood story. You are what lies beneath the mask. And the moment you begin to see it, the healing begins. Stay with me until the end. Because by the time we're finished, you may no longer recognize the self you thought you had to be. You'll finally meet the one who was there before the world told you to hide. What you call your personality is often just the residue of pain you haven't yet acknowledged. It's not your essence, it's your emotional scar tissue. A carefully stitched suit of armor, built not for thriving, but for surviving. Each trait you've come to identify with is not random. It's a message, a signpost, a map back to the moment where something essential, safety, love, validation, was lost or distorted. Let's trace a few common patterns and what they may reveal. The people pleaser. You nod, smile, agree, accommodate, even when it hurts. You apologize for your needs. You stay silent to keep the peace. Why? Because as a child, love may have felt conditional. You learned, if I'm not easy to love, I might be left. Abandonment doesn't always look like someone walking out the door. It can be emotional distance, unpredictability, neglect, or even a parent who was too overwhelmed to attune to your needs. So you adapted. You made yourself useful, agreeable, selfless. You survived by disappearing yourself. The perfectionist. You measure your worth by performance. You fear mistakes like others fear death. You exhaust yourself trying to meet standards that never seem enough. Why? Because somewhere, you internalized the belief, I'm only lovable when I excel. Maybe praise was only given for achievements. Maybe failure brought criticism or shame. Maybe your emotional world was chaotic and control became your coping mechanism. Perfection became your prison, a place where you're never wrong, but never real either. The distant one. You keep others at a safe distance. You're charming, funny, competent, but no one truly knows you. Vulnerability feels unsafe. Intimacy feels suffocating. Love feels threatening. Why? Because opening up once led to pain. Trust was broken. Needs were unmet. Reaching out brought rejection or ridicule. You learned, if I stay hidden, I stay safe. So you built walls. High, strong, impenetrable, and now you don't get hurt, but you also don't get held. The helper. You are the reliable one, the fixer, the emotional caretaker. You're always available, always giving, always showing up. But deep down, you often feel depleted, unseen, or resentful. Why? Because you may have grown up in a household where the emotional roles were reversed. You gave more than you received. Your value was tied to usefulness. Love became something you earned by being needed. So now you serve to be loved. But the love you receive feels hollow, because it's not for who you are, only for what you do. These aren't quirks. They're sophisticated strategies your nervous system built to survive an emotional ecosystem that didn't feel safe, responsive, or consistent. The tragedy? What once kept you safe now keeps you stuck. People-pleasing silences your truth. Perfectionism kills your joy. Emotional distance starves your heart. Overhelping breeds resentment and burnout. Your survival strategies outlived their environment, but your nervous system never got the memo. It's still operating in the past, reacting to ghosts, preparing for threats that no longer exist. Every trait has a shadow, an unmet need it's trying to fill. Behind the achiever is a scared child who never felt good enough. Behind the avoidant is a tender soul who was once shattered by closeness. Behind the controller is someone who once felt powerless and unseen. Behind the chronic giver is someone terrified they'll never be loved for simply existing. You are not broken, you're adaptive. Every trait, every pattern, every reaction was your mind's and body's best attempt to keep you alive, accepted, or sane. Your personality is not set in stone. It's a dynamic, adaptive response, wired into your nervous system through repetition, emotion, and survival. From the earliest moments of life, your brain began interpreting the world not through logic or language, but through sensation. Am I safe? Am I seen? Do I matter? When those answers were inconsistent, painful, or terrifying, your brain adapted, not by thinking, but by wiring new patterns of survival into your biology. Let's break it down neurologically. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, scans for danger, emotional, physical, or social. It doesn't care about logic. It cares about survival. The prefrontal cortex, your reasoning center, is responsible for reflection, decision-making, empathy, and emotional regulation. But it develops later, and it shuts down under threat. The hippocampus, involved in memory, links emotional experiences to context and triggers, silently building internal rules about what is safe or dangerous. So what happens when you grow up in an unpredictable or emotionally unsafe environment? Your amygdala becomes hyperactive. Your nervous system becomes dysregulated. Your brain starts connecting certain behaviors with emotional survival. This is how your personality begins to form, not as a choice, but as a neurobiological adaptation. If expressing sadness led to punishment or being ignored, your brain learned, crying is dangerous. Neural pathways shut down emotional expression. You become stoic, detached, or numb. If conflict led to yelling, violence, or chaos, your brain learned, my voice creates danger. So you go silent, avoid confrontation, or become the mediator. If love was only shown when you succeeded, your brain learned, achievement equals safety. You became the high performer, always striving, never resting. This is neuroplasticity, your brain wiring itself to keep you safe in the environment you were given, not the one you deserved. Your nervous system is not a prison. It's a living, changing ecosystem. Neuroplasticity means that your survival strategies, while deeply ingrained, are not permanent. The brain that learned fear can learn safety. The body that learned tension can learn ease. The voice that was silenced can be reclaimed, but it requires awareness, noticing the patterns without judgment, safety, teaching your body gently that it's no longer in danger, repetition, creating new emotional experiences that challenge the old blueprint. This isn't mindset work, it's nervous system work. You can't just think your way into change, you must feel your way back into safety. Trauma is not just a memory, it's a state your body got stuck in. That's why you can read all the self-help books, go to therapy, journal daily, and still feel stuck. Because your body doesn't speak English, it speaks sensation. Tension in the jaw, clenched fists, a fluttering chest, shallow breath, the urge to withdraw. These are not flaws, they are data, evidence of a nervous system still doing its job, to protect you. But the job is outdated. You're no longer in that home. You're no longer that child. You don't have to live like the danger is still here. Rewiring your survival strategy is not about becoming a better person. It's about becoming a free person. You can become someone who speaks your truth without shaking, sets boundaries without guilt, expresses emotion without shame, rests without proving your worth, connects without fear of being abandoned. Because beneath the wiring, you were never broken. You were brilliantly adaptive, and now you are allowed to rebuild. 2. Most people live their entire lives inside an invisible prison. A prison with no bars, no locks, no guards, but one that feels inescapable nonetheless. It's a prison built from identity, from repetition, from adaptation, from fear. And the most dangerous part? You don't even know you're in it. You've decorated your cell with phrases like, "That's just how I am. I've always been like this. I can't help it. It's just my personality. People like me don't change." But these are not truths. They are scripts, coping strategies masquerading as facts. Defense mechanisms so rehearsed they've become second skin. They feel like you, but they were built to protect you. Once upon a time, you needed armor. You needed it to make sense of a world that didn't feel safe. So you built it. Thought by thought, behavior by behavior, reaction by reaction. You survived. But now you're not in the war anymore. And you're still wearing the armor. It's heavy. It's rigid. It doesn't let you feel. And worst of all, it keeps everyone, including yourself, at a distance. Let's look at how the armor becomes the cage. Your people-pleasing keeps you invisible. You erase yourself to be liked, but then feel unseen, unchosen, and unfulfilled. Your perfectionism keeps you paralyzed. You're so afraid of being wrong, you never allow yourself to be real. Nothing is ever enough. Your toughness keeps you lonely. You pretend not to need anyone, but quietly ache for connection. No one knows how much it hurts. Your independence keeps you disconnected. You pride yourself on doing it all alone, but feel abandoned, unsupported, and exhausted. These traits aren't personality quirks, they're coping systems. They helped you avoid pain, but now they're the source of it. The brain, wired for survival, chooses familiarity over fulfillment. It would rather stay in the known pain than risk the unknown joy. This is why people sabotage love, fear success, and reject peace, because their nervous system is still tethered to an outdated script. If I let my guard down, I'll be hurt. If I rest, I'll fall behind. If I ask for help, I'll be seen as weak. If I show my true self, I'll be rejected. These are the subconscious rules of the cage. They feel true because they once were true, but they are no longer necessary. Real growth, the kind that cracks your life open and brings light to the darkest corners, starts with one terrifying, liberating question. Who would I be without this survival strategy? Without the need to please, without the obsession with control, without the constant readiness for abandonment, without the belief that love must be earned? Who are you without the fear, without the armor, without the apology for existing? That is not an easy question. Because the truth is, you may not know who you are without it. But not knowing is the beginning. Not knowing is freedom. You are not your defenses. You are not your trauma. You are not your coping mechanisms. You are the being beneath them, the soul that learned to protect itself with brilliance, strategy, and silence. But now, you're allowed to come home to yourself. Take off the armor, step out of the cage, and remember, what helped you survive is now killing your joy, and you don't have to carry it anymore. You've been told that healing is about improvement, that you need to fix yourself, change yourself, reinvent yourself, that you must become better, stronger, wiser, more productive, more positive. But that's a lie rooted in the same wound that told you you're not enough. Healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you to be someone else. It's not about polishing the mask. It's about gently removing it. Not about striving to be whole, but realizing you never stopped being whole. Not about self-improvement, but self-return. You don't need to dismantle every trait you've developed. You only need to understand where it came from and what it's trying to protect. You don't need to stop being an achiever. You need to understand that your value doesn't rise and fall with your accomplishments. That you are lovable even when you rest, even when you fail, even when you do nothing at all. You don't need to stop helping others. You need to realize that love isn't something you have to earn through usefulness. You're allowed to receive without giving first. You're allowed to simply be and still be loved. You don't need to stop being cautious. You need to know that the danger has passed, that you're no longer that child walking on eggshells, waiting for the next emotional explosion, that you are safe now. This is what real healing is, not forcing yourself to be someone else, but allowing yourself to be who you would have been if the world had been safe from the start. Healing isn't about deleting parts of you, it's about integration. Your high standards? Keep them, but release the shame that fuels them. Your empathy? Cherish it, but learn that you don't have to bleed to prove you care. Your sensitivity? Honor it, but no longer see it as weakness. Your independence? Respect it, but recognize when it's just fear in disguise. You are not here to amputate the parts of yourself that helped you survive. You are here to bring them home, teach them peace, and allow them to evolve. Because healing doesn't ask you to betray your past. It asks you to hold it with compassion and walk forward with new choices. This isn't about fixing a personality flaw. It's about unearthing your truest self, beneath the anxiety, the hypervigilance, the overachievement, the fear of being too much or not enough. It's about looking at your survival strategies and saying, "Thank you, you protected me when I needed you most, but I don't need you to drive anymore. I can take it from here." That's not rejection, that's maturity, that's integration, that's freedom. You don't have to be better, you only have to be real. And real is messy, real is contradictory, real is radiant, real is alive. And you, just as you are, raw, healing, emerging, are already worthy of love, safety, and peace. Beneath every trauma response, every mask you wear, every pattern that keeps repeating in your life, there is not just pain, there is longing. A longing to be seen without shrinking, to be loved without performing, to be free without fearing the cost of it. You were never born to be the strong one, always holding everything together while breaking silently inside. You were never meant to be the funny one, using laughter to mask your pain. Not the quiet one, too afraid your truth might be too much. Not the successful one, chasing validation like a finish line that keeps moving. These roles weren't your essence, they were your armor. They kept you alive, but they are not who you are. You are not your trauma. You are not your defense mechanisms. You are not your productivity, your silence, your politeness, your control. You are a human being, wildly alive, deeply feeling, born to love and be loved, to speak and be heard, to break and be held. And when you start to peel away the layers, something miraculous happens. You rediscover a voice that was silenced, one that speaks with truth, tenderness, and power, one that no longer asks for permission to exist, a joy that was postponed, the kind that doesn't need to be earned or justified, the joy of simply being here, alive in your own skin, a dream that was buried, the one you tucked away because it felt too selfish, too risky, too vulnerable, the one that still calls your name, a version of you that's no longer terrified of being vulnerable. Because now you know, vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the bridge to everything real. This is not self-discovery, it's self-return. Healing doesn't make you a different person. It reveals the you that's been waiting behind the fear, behind the overachieving, behind the pleasing, behind the perfectionism. It allows you to make choices from love, not protection, to connect from authenticity, not obligation, to express from fullness, not fear. You were never supposed to live in strategy. You were meant to live in truth. And truth doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to be real.